What's up, snappers? Welcome back to the channel. DDDREWSKY here. We're gonna be looking at the brand new card, Scarlet Spider, to see if he's worth your precious resources. We're gonna be looking at his key synergies, counters, and some decks that I brewed for Scarlet Spider. Just as a friendly reminder, please like the video, please subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this type of content. I do weekly reviews about the brand new card in Marvel Snap, and we are trying to reach 500 subs of the channel, so every sub matters. Let's take a look and see who is Scarlet Spider. So in Marvel Snap, Scarlet Spider is a 4-cost, 5-powered card with an activate ability to add an exact clone of this to another location, which I think is very cool and powerful in Marvel Snap. Being able to spread power to another lane is very, very vital. Just look at, Dr. Doom, and I think he has a very his potential of growing his power to a crazy amount possibly is going to be really fun in Marvel Snap. So I think he has a lot of potential. So now let's look at some pros and cons about Scarlet Spider. So a huge pro about Scarlet Spider is that he's an activate. So you can control when he goes off, which is great. You could avoid Shang-Chi, which is amazing. So yeah, I think his activated ability is going to be very powerful in Marvel Snap. I think it's a huge plus about him, because you don't want to have like a 410 just like hanging out and chilling and waiting to get Shang-Chi. So I think it's a very, very good ability for him. So another good point is that he's a 410 potential stats without buffing him. There's a lot of cards in Marvel Snap that can buff him to a crazy amount, and then after that you can move that power to another lane, which is really cool. Well, not move, but basically creating a clone to that lane. And then another good point about him is that you can send that power to another lane, which I don't think a lot of cards that can do that other than Dr. Doom. And you know how good Dr. Doom is, right? So yeah, I think he's basically like a smaller version of Dr. Doom when you really think about it, right? It's like instead of 2 clones, it's just 1 clone. There's no negative for his ability. There's usually a negative tied to a certain ability at 410, right? Look at Typhoid Mary, look at Cold Obsidian, look at even Crossbones, right? So I think for his ability, there's not really a huge negative. But actually, let's look at some of the cons about him. So a con about him would be he's very predictable. Well, I would say in his lane that you play him in, right? Like if someone has a counter, they know where the card's going to be hanging out at. When his clone goes to a different lane, that's probably the unpredictableness of it. But for him to be on his own lane or in a lane before the activate goes off, he's going to be very, very predictable. Another con about him is the late activator. We saw how it was for Symbiote Spider-Man. Him as a 4-cost, I don't think it's going to be too bad, because it's a way different ability compared to Symbiote Spider-Man. So him being able to just hang out in that lane, and then you could do some manipulation with him even beforehand or after, and then create the clone. It would be it's a little bit different, kind of like a cycle. So just be worried, or a little bit cognizant of him being at a 4-cost. So yeah, just be careful that he's gonna be a late kind of like turn for his ability. So another con about him is that he's a higher power, higher downfall. So the more the more power that you give him, the more highly chance of him being countered. So again, if you get him to a crazy amount of power, like 10 or more, you can definitely get Shang-Chi. You can definitely get Shadow Kinged. You should definitely be worried about counters. So again, the more the more power that you generate, the highly likely you'll get counters. So be careful of going way too crazy with Scarlet Spider. And then another huge con is then again, you can't really control where his clones go. Again, in a crazy world, his clone might go into like Bar with No Name, for example, or Rickety Bridge or something like that. So again, that's a huge negative. But you know, I feel like hopefully there's not enough like bad locations that will, you know, put you in that situation. Even Space Throne might be okay, but again, that's another huge negative about him. All right, now let's look at some key synergies and counters for Scarlet Spider. So the first synergy that I have for Scarlet Spider is Gwenpool. So again, Gwenpool is kind of an example of other cards like maybe like Forge or even Aranya to boost up Scarlet Spider. But you know, with Gwenpool, the +2 power, I think it's going to be very good, especially if you can hit Scarlet Spider. Again, it's going to be, it's pretty much like the greedy route of, you know, juicing up Scarlet Spider before you create a clone of him. But yeah, there's synergies with that. Another synergy is with Symbiote Spider-Man, the Season Pass card. Again, you can have Scarlet Spider in one lane, and then, or you could have Symbiote Spider-Man in one lane, and then either or, and then have Symbiote Spider-Man pretty much attach himself onto Scarlet Spider. So yeah, I think that synergy might work, especially going very greedy. You'll have like 11 powered Scarlet Spider, which I think is super greedy. And then you can create a clone of that power to another lane. I think it's gonna be very nutty. So again, I think that combination could be really fun. Another sleeper pick is Namora. Namora is a, you know, +5 power. If you could add another +5 power to Scarlet Spider, especially when he's on his own lane, and then spread that power, which is 10, to another lane, is gonna be really, really nutty. So again, I think Namora Scarlet Spider is gonna be a really cool synergy. So for the counters, there's obviously Shadow King. Shadow King, especially if you're juicing up Scarlet Spider, you know, and expecting to, you know, keep that power, he will just reset it, which really, really sucks, but you know, it's a necessary evil in the game. Another counter is Shang-Chi. Again, if you go crazy and juice up Scarlet Spider enough to get him at actual 10 power, you have to be careful of Shang-Chi. And then with Red Guardian, I think he's the only counter card for activate cards at the moment. So again, I don't really see many, you know, Red Guardians floating around, but you never know. You know, he's a huge counter against those cards, which, you know, I think I'm kind of surprised that not many people are running Red Guardian, honestly. But yeah, with if more and more activate cards are in the meta, he will be wrecking all those activate cards. Now let's look at some of the decks that I brewed for Scarlet Spider. I think they're pretty fun and competitive, so let's take a look. So the first deck that we have here is called Scarlet's Clone Army. So the goal of this deck is to utilize the tokens that are being generated from these cards. So Mysterio obviously has his tokens. Scarlet Spider has a token as well. Some of the play lines that I have thought about in my head is using Kitty, Angela, Elsa in their own lane, you know, generating that power, generating cards with Hawkeye, you know, all the 1-cost cards with her. You'll be utilizing those 1-cost cards with, you know, Kitty, Silver Sable, with Hit Monkey and Black Swan. Black Swan loves 1-cost cards, so make sure you use her brand new activate ability to utilize all those 1-cost cards. Hit Monkey loves all those, you know, 1-cost cards that turn into 0-cost cards with Black Swan, so you can have a very, very explosive last turn with Hit Monkey. So another key synergy is utilizing Gwenpool to power up Scarlet Spider or Mysterio, or even the other cards in this deck. And all these, you know, clones potentially with Mysterio and Scarlet Spider will discount Mockingbird. So I believe, you know, there's a lot of really cool different win cons with this deck. I'm personally going to be using this one probably first to, you know, experiment with Scarlet Spider. But yeah, let's take a look at the next deck that I brewed. So the next deck is called Scarlet Double Trouble. So this deck is surrounded around, you know, basically the Namora, I guess you could say, archetype of, you know, setting up a card in one lane and then powering them up with Namora. There's different play lines where, you know, you use Echo to protect your Wong. Nightcrawler and Jeff are really good cards, especially, and I would say Nocturne, to have them in their own lane, and you can move them if you want later, or you know, power them up with Nomura and then move them out later. Ravonna has great synergy with Ironheart, Sage. So ideally the best scenario would be like Wong, Scarlet Spider, and then Nomura. You could, you know, juice them up and then basically, you know, create a clone of Scarlet Spider after that. And then another fallback play line would be the Wong, White Tiger, Odin play as well. So there's a lot of different like potential win cons with this deck, which I think is very, very interesting. And don't sleep on Nomura, because I have in the past. So yeah, I think this deck would be very fun and competitive. But let's take a look at the third and final list for Scarlet Spider. So this deck is called Symbiote Synergy. This deck is more or less like a Phoenix Force type of list, but we're going to be using the brand new card Aranya and Scarlet Spider. Aranya, you know, it has some synergy. Even with Scarlet Spider, you can use her potentially with Scarlet Spider to power him up. You could use Aranya to juice up Human Torch and Multiple Man as well. And I guess the play lines would be basically powering up Human Torch, Multiple Man, and even Nimrod. Scarlet Spider is another addition to that team. I should say, after powering up those cards, you basically destroy them with either Carnage or Venom, and then you could even bring them back potentially, depending on who it is. If it's Torch or Multiple Man, you could bring them back with Phoenix Force. You could even use, you know, Symbiote Spider-Man with Scarlet Spider, attaching the Symbiote Spider-Man to Scarlet Spider. And you could even this is even more of a crazy you know, play line, but you could even throw down Zola on that Scarlet Spider after it's been attached by Symbiote Spider-Man. So there's a lot of nutty, crazy play lines in this deck. It's a super extremely greedy power deck. So again, be careful all the counters that you potentially could face. And obviously there's a Nimrod fallback as well. I forgot to even explain about Shuri, but you could use Shuri to Nimrod. You could do Shuri, the Scarlet Spider as well. You could even Shuri, the Symbiote Spider-Man, and even Phoenix Force. So again, she has a lot of targets in this deck. It's usually those cards, or the card that you bring back from with Phoenix Force. So again, I think this deck is gonna be really fun, but again, be careful of those counters, because you're going to be generating a lot of power and they're either going to be retreating very quickly or not. All right, now let's look what's in the Spotlight Week with Scarlet Spider. So Scarlet Spider is with Scar and White Widow. Scar is another Series 5 card. I think he's very good in the current meta, especially with Hela and other power slam decks. In the future, including, you know, cards like Surtur, you know, a card that has been data mined. If you haven't, you know, checked out that video, definitely go check it out. But yeah, I think he's gonna be pretty good from the long run. White Widow, I think, is very, very powerful in the current meta. She's a clog staple. Her Widow's Kiss, that -3, sending it over to another person's lane, is so freaking powerful. So I would say definitely go pick her up. I'm honestly shocked that she has not been nerfed, but maybe in the future she will be, just to warn you guys. So let's look at the Spotlight variants. So Scarlet Spider in Hyuklee is amazing. I think this animation is, again, as insane. So if you have the tokens, I would say definitely use the tokens first before you get him. For Scar and White Widow, I'm not a huge fan of either of the variants. Personally, I think Scar has tons of variants. White Widow, in my opinion, art germ is, you know, already exists in the game. So I personally think, you know, she has other variants that are better than this one. So again, art is subjective. Again, be careful with your keys. I personally don't think these are the best to go for with keys. So just be careful. The only ones I think is good is pretty much Scarlet Spider. So again, just as a friendly reminder, make sure to use 4 keys if you're going for a week. Do not have FOMO. Do not run out of keys, because it's a huge bummer if you miss out on the brand new card. So again, just be careful with your resources, especially when you're low. Now let's take a look at my star ratings for Scarlet Spider. So for competitive, I gave him a 3.5 stars. I think he'd be pretty good as a card in general. Spreading that 5 power, which is 10 power in total, I think it's pretty good. Unfortunately, I think Doom is still a little bit better, you know, with the spread of the Doom bots, but yeah, just as a comparison to the cards. But yeah, I think he'd be pretty competitive. For fun, I think it'd be pretty fun. There's a lot of decks that can utilize him, especially the ones that I brewed for him. But you could get him to like a crazy amount of power and then, you know, create a clone of that power to another lane. I think it'd be pretty fun. For flexibility, I gave him a 3.5 stars. There are a lot of decks that can utilize him. There is another deck that I didn't showcase, which is like pretty much like maybe a Sandman Patriot build, because you know Patriot could utilize the clone that he has. So yeah, I think his flexibility is pretty good. For future changes, I would say 2.5 stars. It depends again if he's like underpowered or whatnot, but I think at the current state he's pretty well balanced. So I don't know. I maybe potentially in the future he doesn't get changed. Now let's take a look at my final ranking of Scarlet Spider and to see if he is worth a snap or skip. So I say snap on him because I think he's gonna be very, very fun as a card and a little bit competitive in the current meta. I believe, you know, some of the combinations they could do with this card is gonna be really, really fun. I personally think he's gonna be a snap if you have enough resources. Honestly, if you're low on resources, I personally don't think you should go for this card, but I think his potential is very fun and exciting to the game. Let me know in the comments if you're going to be getting a Scarlet Spider or not. Let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts, and if you haven't yet, please like the video, please subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it, and I will see you on the next snap or skip. Happy snapping.